I'm Mr. Banks. I'm a hypnotist and founder of ClearForge. I spend a lot of time thinking about how attention, environment, repetition, and emotional states shape the way that we behave. And there's a case actually right now involving Meta that I think raises a much bigger question than whether Facebook or Instagram should win or lose the lawsuit. Meta is actually heading into federal court over allegations that Facebook and Instagram were deliberately designed in ways that keep younger users engaged and that the company misrepresented aspects of how safe those platforms were. Meta denies those allegations, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm the judge or that I know how the case should ultimately come out. Instead, what interests me is the behavioral question underneath it. How responsible are you for your behavior when the environment around you has been deliberately designed to influence that behavior? Because this actually comes up in my work as a hypnotist all the time. People sit down with me and they say, Mr. Banks, I don't know if I can be hypnotized. And I find that kind of funny, actually, and it is very interesting because people actually dramatically underestimate how much influence they're already exposed to every single day. Your phone is influencing where you put your attention. Notifications influence when you interrupt yourself. Headlines influence what you become emotionally activated about. Algorithms learn what keeps you looking. And people around you influence what feels normal. And then there's your own internal dialogue, the things you repeatedly tell yourself about who you are, what you can do, what you can't do, what you're afraid of. Now, I'm not saying that scrolling through Instagram is literally the same thing as formal hypnosis. It isn't. Formal hypnosis is deliberate. When somebody works with me, we know what we're trying to accomplish. We're directing our attention intentionally. We're rehearsing specific responses. We're changing expectations and patterns on purpose. But the larger principle is still important, that whatever repeatedly captures your attention is training something. And that's where I think this meta case actually gets interesting. A lot of people will frame this as one of two extremes. One side will say, these companies designed addictive products, so the user is basically the victim. Then the other side will say, hey, nobody forced you to use your phone. You need to have self-control. And I think that both of these positions are actually missing something, and something important. Personal responsibility and environmental influence can both be real at the same time. You are responsible for your behavior, but if your environment is influencing your behavior, then taking responsibility also means becoming more deliberate about the environment you keep placing yourself within. Because if somebody or something can repeatedly control your attention and your emotional state, it has a much easier time influencing your behavior. That's a big part of what we talk about with ClearForge. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if your attention is constantly fragmented, your emotions are constantly being provoked, and your environment is constantly training the opposite behavior of what you want, then eventually intention gets overwhelmed by repetition, which becomes habit. Think about outrage content. If every day you spend an hour watching people argue, or if you get angry at politics, or fighting in comment sections, watching road rage videos, watching people humiliate each other, what emotional state are you rehearsing if you do those things? Now you might just say, well, I'm just watching. Maybe. But you're also practicing attention. You're practicing emotional responses. You're practicing what your mind considers important enough to react to. And eventually those repeated states can then become easier to enter without you even trying. They become a part of your programming, your subconscious programming. And that's why I think one of the most important questions that you can ask yourself is this: what am I programming myself to become? Not because there's some mysterious person sitting behind a curtain controlling your mind, but because human beings adapt to what they repeatedly do, what they repeatedly think about, what they repeatedly feel, and what they repeatedly expose themselves to. So, what can we actually learn from this meta case? Here's my takeaway. You are going to be influenced. The goal isn't to become immune to influence. The goal is to become more deliberate about what or who gets access to you. Look at your phone. Look at the people around you. Look at what you watch. Look at what repeatedly makes you angry, afraid, distracted, or impulsive. And then ask whether those influences are training the person that you actually want to become. So, pay attention to what you're rehearsing. I'm Mr. Banks, and I'll see you next time.